It's the All-Star break, so let's dive into some numbers about what's making the Boston Celtics good and what's holding them back on their pursuit of a second straight championship. Right here, right now, on the Celtics Chronicle. What's good, everybody? As usual, I'm your boy Adam Taylor. I'm joined by my homie and co-host in crime, Mr. Billy Calabrese. And today we're joined by Dr. Shravan, in my opinion, one of the top 3 analytic guys in the NBA space that isn't connected to a team or to an organization. We're going to go into a little bit of a different mode today. Usually I know we try and look at film, we talk things through a little bit more like fan-centrically, but today we're going straight numbers, and you couldn't get a better guy to bring in than Shravan, or Dr. Shravan. Please address him as doctor. He's just got his doctorate. Shravan, man, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me, Adam.
Shravan's been gracious enough to offer us some time. So that if we just dive in straight away, and we're going to look at some comparison numbers, where the Celtics are this season compared to where they were last season. And the numbers here are provided from somebody different. They're not straight from Shravan here. They're from Shane Young. But Shravan can add some contextualization here, and it can build us up to the rest of the episode. So this season, the Celtics have a 38-16 record. Last season, at this point, coming into the All-Star break, they had a 42-12 record. They had 10 20 point or more victories last year, 14 this year. Their offensive rating last year was 121.4, which was 3rd in the NBA. This year it's 120.3, which is 4th in the NBA. 112.3 defensive rating, 3rd in the NBA. 110.9 this year, 5th in the NBA. Net rating was 9.1 last season, 1st in the NBA. 9.4 this season, 3rd in the NBA. If we just hold it there so we're not throwing out numbers everywhere, all we need to really know is there's been a slight regression in offense and defense, which has been shown in their slight regression in net rating, which is the difference between the two. I've got some points here that I want to make once we spoke about the numbers that can kind of contextualize these a little bit more, but just sticking with those numbers from raw data at the moment, Shravan, how much of a regression are you seeing based on just the improvements around the team and around the NBA this season?
I think the main thing is the Celtics haven't changed that much. It's the NBA that's changed. So if you look at the offensive and defensive ratings, like defensive rating has actually improved, but the Celtics went from 3rd to 5th. It's because they're better defenses, like Houston Rockets, like Oklahoma City Thunder. The OKC Thunder are having a historic defense. Because other teams have improved defensively and Celtics have basically stayed the same, there's a slight drop-off relative to the league. But basically, what these numbers are showing me is the Celtics are the same as last year. And when they won the championship.
Yeah, exactly. And part of this is, as you said, the league's caught up, the league's adjusted. It was always going to be an Ime Udoka team that really improved defensively. Like, that was just unavoidable. Oklahoma, as you said, are playing elite defense. So just for anyone watching that doesn't really follow stats too deeply, defensive rating, the lower it is, the better, because it's the amount of points you allow per 100 possessions, and you use a per 100 because that's the average amount of possessions in a game. So per 100 last season, teams were scoring 112.3 points. Per 100 this season, 110.9. But as Shravan pointed out, the other teams in the NBA have improved and actually surpassed what Boston are doing. Part of that probably has to do with Kristaps Porzingis being out. Sam Hauser hasn't been at his best for the majority of the year. A bit more double big because they were missing an extra defensive-minded wing. Hopefully Torrey Craig can fix that. But those numbers do show a slight regression, even though what we're seeing on the court is very similar, as Shravan said, to what we saw last season en route to a championship. Which brings us on to a bit of a comparison. So I know you've put some stats in a sheet that we're looking at. And Billy, I know you wanted to run through these.
Yeah, so the biggest ones I'm always, because we're considered a 3-point shooting team, live by the 3, die by the 3. I know there's a lot of false hoods to that. We're definitely a lot more than that. But what do you see about the quality of the shots and the 3-point shooting in general?
Yeah, what I see is that looking at from B-Ball Index, I've looked at the team leaderboard, which have a team depth tool, which basically sees the talent based on the rotation number. It's like they compare Tatum with other number ones, like Jaylen Brown with other number 2s. Looking at that, like 3-point shooting talent wise, Boston Celtics are by far the number one team in the NBA with an average rank of around 6, and Milwaukee is second with 11. So it's like across the roster, like 1 to 8 depth. I'm considering 8 depth because playoff rotation is generally 8. It's by far the best shooting talent.
And
That's why the Celtics take so many threes, and they should, because that's their strength.
And where would you say the one-on-one shooting talent and the rim shot quality?
Yeah, one-on-one shooting talent is basically isolations. So if you look at that, the way the Celtics generate advantages because they're very good isolation guys. They can beat their man one-on-one and then create advantages to generate better shots, either for themselves or for their draw help and for their teammates. The Celtics are fourth in isolation, one-on-one shooting talent. It's like, that's why they generate so many easy buckets for the teammates. And for the rim shot quality, again, if you generate easy shots for your teammates, generally it's either a rim shot or a 3 shot. We already discussed about 3-point shooting, and rim shot quality, Celtics are third in the league. So they're generating very good shots at the rim.
And just to get that, you said whether it's a rim shot or a 3-point shot, is this on driving dishes as well, or just straight up within 4 feet of the basket?
Rim shot is within 4 feet of the basket.
That's fine. So one thing I do want to get into, I know there's still more that Billy wants to ask here is, and people are gonna like, if I'm watching anything like this where it's heavily analytical, is what are you doing to generate these numbers? How are you finding them? How are they being calculated? And I understand we don't need the algorithm for each one of them, but if we just focus on, let's try 3-point shooting talent, because that goes beyond just 3-point percentage. It goes into shot quality. It goes into so many different aspects. So you've got the Celtics as the best team in the league for their top 8 players in minutes per game in terms of 3-point shot quality. And sorry, in terms of 3-point shooting talent. How is that even being generated algorithmically?
So this is, again, these stats are for B-Ball Index. They are stats made by Krishna Narsu. I don't know the exact formula, but 3-point shooting talent includes how many shots you take, how well are you shooting on them, and the shot type also, like the shot quality. Like not all 3-point shots are the same. Like contested 3-point shots are different from uncontested 3-point shots. Assisted 3-point shots are different from unassisted 3-point shots. Like there's a lot of things which go into it. I'm not sure the exact formula, but this 3-point shooting talent gives the overall, like why this, because it is an all-in-one number for shooting, 3-point shooting. Like just, we have all-in-one metrics for like LeBron EPM, right? This is something similar.
Billy, you can carry on now, bud.
Yeah, no worries. I want to keep kind of going down this track with the post-up points per possession, the efficiency. Now, is this mostly Kristaps Porzingis, or is this just how they do their killer whale offense and they hunt mismatches and they turn, maybe get Tatum on a smaller guard and he posts up?
Yeah, I think you're forgetting one more name, Jaylen Brown. Good at this. Like one of his main strengths is like beating smaller guys, going one-on-one, posting up smaller guys. And Kristaps Porzingis is like one of the best in the league in terms of raw efficiency and post-ups. I don't have the exact numbers here, but he's probably 1 or 2 or 3. But his Celtics post-up numbers aren't that high, but if they really want to double down, like on a game, they're one of the elite teams in the NBA at like post-up efficiency.
I want to touch on clutch numbers, right? Because clutch numbers have been a topic on and off through the season, predominantly because, and I kind of wrote about this the other day over on the newsletter, and I just want to shout out to everybody. If you're still watching right now, make sure you subscribe and like the channel. Make sure you leave a comment, show some love. But I do want to kind of look at clutch numbers, because a variance for me that I found was Jaylen Brown is actually far more reliable as a catch and shoot threat in the clutch than Jason Tatum. Jason Tatum is far more reliable in that mid-range and around the rim in the clutch, which is crazy to me because you'd actually think it was on the flip side, right? You'd think it was completely reversed, but numbers stating there, and I'll put that up on the screen where I wrote that down. But then obviously you've on this sheet, we did look at some clutch numbers. You've got clutch. The Celtics are high and very high in leverage, which I'm assuming.
No, I'll explain those stats. So basically, most people, when they look at clutch stats, they use like clean the glass, they filter out garbage time, or look at clutch stats there. But what I prefer is go to pvpstats.com, and they categorize each function into 4 different categories: low leverage, medium leverage, high, and very high leverage. So if you want to look at stats without garbage time, you can just filter out the low leverage positions. If you want clutch stats, now you have to look at high and very high leverage positions, and you can get much detailed stats. I've put only a few here, but there are a lot of more detail. Like as Adam said, like you can go to players and look at their high leverage stats and medium leverage stats to see how they're doing. So for Celtics, they're doing really good in the clutch, actually. So they're third in offensive rating, fifth in defensive rating, and third in net rating at plus 21. So that's like really good. You might think that because they're losing some closer games this season compared to last season because they had a better record. But even now, the Celtics are really good in the clutch. And also, clutch numbers sometimes are iffy because of the small sample size. So each of these numbers are like a stabilization metric, like how many positions or how many minutes does it take for these numbers for us to actually trust them. And clutch numbers are very small. So always look at clutch stats with a grain of salt. It's very noisy.
You touched on it a little bit. How do we compare with other teams with how many games are going down to the clutch? Because I do believe we have more 20-point victories than any other team. So a lot of our games aren't going down to the clutch. Do you feel like that is a good enough sample size? Or how do we compare to the rest of the league in those kind of games?
Generally, teams which are as good as Celtics don't play as many clutch games because of their margin of victory is usually large.
So we go on to the defense, right? The defense was arguably, in my opinion, the Celtics' identity is on the defensive end, and I've hammered this home for years. And especially in the Joe Mazzulla era, everybody's like, no, it's offense. They shoot a ton of threes. That's what they do. Yeah, they do, but their identity falls defensively. If you look at what they did in the playoffs last year, if I remember this correctly, I think they played 19 games, and in 11 of them, they held teams to under 100 points. So for me, defense has always been the bedrock for this team. And you've pulled up some defensive metrics and some defensive stats to tell us whether or not the Celtics, the eye test of what we've seen defensively, where they haven't looked as connected this season for stretches, especially in transition. When it's not transition, it's containing the pick and roll. There's been areas of weakness throughout the year that have then been plugged and a new area has popped up. So what are the numbers telling us about the Celtics defense just for the season as a whole?
So these numbers are mostly like half court based. I haven't looked at transition numbers, but Celtics have third lowest opposition effective field goal percentage, like which takes into account 2 points and 3 points. So that's like really good. They're allowing opponents to take difficult shots compared to the rest of the league, which is good on a longer run because if opponents keeps taking difficult shots, they'll miss more. And with related to 2 point field goal percentage, they're the fourth lowest opponent 2 point field goal percentage. And they have also the fifth lowest opponent 3 point field goal percentage. So the 3 point defense is also good.
What about the opponent turnovers? So Celtics technically really don't force a ton of turnovers. They're not a high ball pressure team in terms of trying to jump passing lanes. They do get them, especially it's mainly anticipatory when they're playing passing lanes. It's not so much on ball pressure and busy hands. But I know you've looked at where they rank there, and then vice versa. They are actually keeping hold of the ball really well. One of their weaknesses under Ime Udoka and towards the end of that Brad Stevens era was they were super like slippy with the ball. They made mistakes. It was sloppy. 2 years ago, Jaylen Brown's nickname for me was Butterfingers Brown because he just continually lost control of the ball. They seem to have really fixed that as well. So I just want to look at turnovers on like both sides of the ball. How are the Celtics doing in terms of generating turnovers, and how are they doing in terms of not allowing themselves to turn the ball over?
I haven't looked at offensive metrics here, but defensively, they're ninth highest opponent turnovers per 100 possessions. So you're saying they don't focus it, but they're doing above league average in that.
And it also seems like they're not fouling. So they're forcing these turnovers. They're not letting the opponents get to the foul line. How does that compare around the league?
Yeah, I was really interested to see this stat. I was like really surprised. So what I'm discussing here is the fouling rates of basically free throw attempts for field goal attempts. So it's percentage of shots which you foul. So it's 20%. And guess in the second best in the league, guess who is the first? It's San Antonio Spurs with Wemby at like 98%. But Celtics being the second lowest falling team shows that how disciplined they are defensively, how organized they are. And this is really valuable in the playoffs where foul drawing is more emphasized. So if you don't foul, you have more consistent defense.
So I just want to put that into more context for people watching. Kind of like, so what are we talking about? That is the amount of times the Celtics foul per field goal defended. So how often per defensive possession are they sending teams to the line? That puts them 29th out of 30 teams. So only the Spurs are fouling less frequently. And that's because you've got Wemby just swallowing everybody up. Now, part of that is probably due to the way the Celtics have a rim protector rotating over from the weak side, so they're deterring shots. Part of that is probably because of the way they pinch around the elbows to really limit penetration in the first place. They're also forcing teams into late shot clock execution as well, which then means you don't really need to foul because you've already got them under a significant amount of pressure. Rim deterrence in just the amount of size that the Celtics can put on the floor, especially when they go double big. Lots of factors can go into not needing to foul, but as Shravan pointed out, it is a really disciplined defensive approach. Sorry, Billy, I just wanted to give some context there.
No, I thought that was perfect because that was kind of my question there as well. The other thing we can kind of go to is the rebounding. So obviously defensive rebounds. If you're forcing these misses, what's happening after that? Are we giving up offensive boards? Are they getting extra shots? Are they getting extra possessions on us?
So yeah, Celtics are 6th in defensive rebound percentage. And for a team which is third lowest in opponent effective field goal percentage, that's a really good combination. Like you're forcing your opponent to miss shots and you're gobbling up all the defensive rebounds. So you have more positions that way.
There's been about 4 games this season where it hasn't felt that way, and they've just absolutely been mauled on the offensive glass. And I've been sitting here absolutely livid. Like, dude, what are they doing? Get a body, box out, fight on the boards, headbutt someone if you need to, do something. But for the majority of the time, they have been quite dominant defensively. As you pointed out, is an aspect that this is why I try not to mess around with stats too much, because I always look at it through a very like narrow tunnel. So you pointing out like, hey, not only is their defensive rebounding good, but the fact that they're holding teams to, what is it, 52% EFG, so 2s and 3s combined, that also bodes well because teams are missing essentially 1 of every 2 shots they take, but the Celtics are grabbing those rebounds, and it's one and done possessions for a majority of times when facing this Celtics defense. Doesn't always feel that way though. I'm gonna put it out there. I don't know if you watch a lot of Celtics, it doesn't always feel that way.
So yeah, I watch some Celtics and also I'm a lot of Celtics mutual. So I see them tweeting on the timeline. They're always mad on some of these games, but also remember it's small sample sizes. Like we also remember bad things more than good things. Most of the time Celtics are good, but when they're bad, they really stand out.
Yeah, it stings more as well, right? And I call it it's kind of a, how can I put it? It's kind of being spoiled because we're so used to them winning now, and it's like,
Yep.
dude, man, when they lose, it hurts because it just doesn't happen very often. It really annoys me. Sorry, Billy, I'll let you go ahead. My apologies, man. Again.
Oh, don't ever apologize. That's awesome. Like I said, I like the context on that. Would you, as we kind of make our way through this stuff, because like every one of these, like we could spend an hour on. What do you think about the shot quality, and not just in the clutch, just in general? Like, are we one of the most high powered, efficient offenses? Where do we kind of stand on there?
Yeah, based on team shot quality, and like I have my own shot quality metric, which considers shot type, defender distance, and touch time. Celtics are really good at shot making, especially Peyton Pritchard. Like that's one name. Like he's a breakout role player this year. Like probably should be 6th man of the year. Like he has 107 points added, which is probably like top 10 or top 20 in the whole league. Like that's because of his excellent shot making, which is about like 10 percentage points higher than his expected field goal percentage. That's like really, really good. And also followed by Tatum. Tatum has always been efficient, like for the past 5-6 years. Like he also has like more than 100 points added according to my shot quality metric. And other players who are positive include like Derek White, Sam Hauser, and Porzingis. And that's not the only thing. Only two Celtics players are negative in this metric. And that's like really important because you're not throwing players who are not shooting efficiently out there. Having only 2 players in the entire roster is like remarkable.
And you think with 54 games now, just about, is that enough sample size where this isn't a flash in the pan, these quality shots and this quality shot making?
These are a lot of shots. If you see the field goal attempts, it's like 600 for Pritchard, 1,000 for Tatum,
Yeah, it's
600 for Derek White. These are like huge. Maybe Sam Hauser, 270. That's a bit iffy. But even Porzingis has 380 shots. These are like stable numbers.
I think the one thing I want to point out here, and everyone can see this on the screen, and Shravan, one thing I'd really like to ask you when you've got the time, and I'd like to put this out on social media as I'll put this one out, but I want to put them out back to back as well, is to look at like a difference between last year and this year, just to see who's moved up and who's moved down in terms of shot quality. Because I'd be really intrigued. You've got Jaylen Brown down at 8th, right? With a level, like it's even, right? Neutral would be the best points added in terms of shot making. I feel like he would have been quite high last season. And that's just, there's been a change in role for him. He hasn't been as consistent offensively. But if one player was going to stand out to me that isn't where I'd assume they would be, it would be Jaylen Brown. And as you said at the start of this discussion, you're basing this on touch time, on shot type, and on shot difficulty?
Defender distance.
Defender difference, yeah, which is shot difficulty, yeah. That to me is one that really stands out considering where Brown was last season, how he played to now. Numbers wise,
like, I think he has been dribbling more, so that
yeah,
goes into touch time. So harder shots. He's taking harder shots. He has like 51% expected effective field goal percentage, which is like bad for a secondary star.
yeah.
Like Tatum is worse at 50%, but he's the primary star.
And this goes into what Drew Hanlon spoke about on the last guest episode, where he was like, players' expected field goal percentage goes down when the shot profile difficulty increases. It is kind of like a bell curve where if the more difficult shots, the more touches you get, the more your expected field goal percentage drops. I just wouldn't have expected it to have dropped so significantly. I think that's where I'm at with it. Sorry, Billy, I keep cutting into you, man. I like you asking the questions because I like jumping in with some secondary thoughts on this. So continue with what you are doing, my good sir.
Oh, no worries. Hope everybody's having a good time. I definitely am because this stuff is fascinating.
And if you're still here, hit that subscribe button, show some love, leave a comment because we love you too. B-Ball
Index had a post ranking like the top 10 in on-ball gravity. Tatum was 6. He was essentially the only non-guard. Gravity, impact, is this a good way to measure it? Is there a better stat that kind of measures this? Can you kind of break down what the gravity means? Like, as us Celtics fans, we know what it means because we see it. We see how he always draws the double teams, how he always draws the attention. But what can we see that actually on the graph that like explains that?
Yeah, I actually spoke to the creator of this stat to ask his thoughts on it. So I'm telling directly his thoughts. So this on-ball gravity tries to measure the impact of defensive attention a player sees. So it's a good statistic to measure how much attention basically a ball handler sees. So that's why most of the players on the list are guards. And Tatum I think is a guard in a bigger body, but so he's also handles the ball a lot, and he's drawing 6th in the league in on-ball gravity. So it doesn't measure like direct impact, but it measures how Tatum shifts defenses, how defenses react to him. So players with high on-ball gravity are important to the team's offenses since they can create advantages, leveraging that gravity and generating easy shots for teammates.
And you said it was a good statistic to measure the attention the ball handler receives, but not impact. Is there any statistic that would be better for impact on this? Because it doesn't always show up in the stat sheet. Tatum could be shooting like, 10 for 30, but he could still have a good game because of all this attention and gravity he's getting.
So yeah, basically all-in-one metrics, the offensive components of these try to capture the impact. So you can either go for offensive LeBron or offensive EPM or offensive Darko. So all these stats try to capture the impact metrics, which includes efficiency, gravity, everything like rolls up. That's why these are called all-in-one metrics.
Do you like all-in-one metrics?
Again, I like them, but I try to use them in a proper context, which most people don't. So it depends on how you use them.
So I'm going to put this out there.
Stats are important in context, so you have to contextualize.
And this is where my issue, and I'm going to be honest with you now, and I'm probably going to say if people have made it this far, what a lot of people feel, and I've said this to you privately, Shravan, is my biggest issue with these catch-all metrics is to understand the context they need to be used in. You kind of need to understand the math behind them. And to quote Kevin Durant, nobody wants to look at a graph when they're having a fucking basketball conversation. And just to kind of put that into context for most average fans, the math behind them can sometimes be quite significant. If you need a high level understanding of maths, and not everybody has that, right? Like over in the UK, I've got an A level in math. I'm okay at it. I feel like it's the one below a degree, right? Like it's 3 years out of a degree, but it's the next qualification below. I feel comfortable, but even I look at some of these and I'm like, dude, this is beyond my understanding, or it's beyond. And that to me kind of really creates a barrier of entry when we want to talk about these catch-alls, because it's one thing to look at them and just spit out a number, but as you just said, it's another thing to look at them with the correct context and actually use them the right way. And that's very difficult when there's such a high barrier of entry. So what do you find, like, when people say this to you, obviously you find maths quite easy because you're smart as shit and it's part of your like study mentality, but how do you kind of counter that? How would you come back at people that have said that?
So yeah, I agree. It's like a high level of entry because again, I don't have a statistics background. So me even trying to look at the math behind this stats like took me like weeks or months to understand them properly. And also I've communicated with creators of the stats to get to know the source, like what's done. Like it's a complicated process. That's why I haven't tried creating one of these stats yet, because a lot of things go into it, a lot of tweaking, a lot of understanding of data, understanding what data is good, what is bad, how do you validate stuff. So these all stats also are validated to project like team performance. So a lot of math goes behind it. So it's like a little bit like separated from the fans who might not understand this, but most of the time these numbers are all in one, right? It's simple. It's one number. So it's easy to, so what I want to say is like, these are impact metrics. These are not talent metrics. Most of these all in one. So impact and talent are different. It's not a ranking. So if you see top 10 in like EPM, it's not a ranking. It's the impact of that season for that player, for his team, in his role. So everything has a context. You can't say, okay, Pritchard is 9th in EPM. Pritchard is the 9th best player in the NBA. No, you can't do that. You can't use these metrics for absolute ranking. You can include that in an overall holistic analysis for ranking players or analyzing players, but these can't be the only things you look into.
And this is where I feel like there's a disconnect, right? If you're on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, it doesn't matter what platform you're on, there's a very clear disconnect between the analytics group, the X's and O's guys, and then the I trust what I see. I don't need nobody to tell me anything else. There's a big disconnect between those three core parts of like NBA analysis, NBA fandom, and trying to bridge that gap between them all, which I feel like we're trying to do here, is really difficult because again, that barrier of entry, it's the same with X's and O's. Like when I first started studying X's and O's, these words were just words. Someone told me, oh, they ran a 21 reset rip. I'm like, I don't know what the fuck you're on about. Like, it took me months and months and months to watch, understand, conceptualize, and then if you try and add that and then say to someone, now you've learned this aspect, now you need to go away and do some really advanced math to understand how to do the analytics, it becomes very difficult to be a fan, to just be a fan. So it is an interesting conversation. I don't think there's a win-win anywhere. I think people are going to go whatever way they feel like they're going. But I just wanted to pose that question because I guarantee we were going to get at least one comment where someone was like, why the fuck do I care about stats? So,
like, my suggestion is to understand what these stats mean instead of blindly spitting them out.
Yeah.
Like, don't, like, try to, like, each of these stats have their own description page, like in the about section of their websites. And there are some sites which try to have a glossary or summary of most of these stats. I can probably post the link later, but try to read what these stats actually mean instead of just, okay, everyone is using them, let me use them. Most of the time, a single paragraph can improve your understanding of the stats by a whole lot.
I'm going to be honest, I cheated. So EPM was one. Oh, you gave me a great like baseline of most of these stats when we were having our chat, but I cheated. So EPM was one that just wasn't working for me. So I went to the Dunks and Freeze website, took their like massive explanation, just plugged it into Chat GPT and said, explain it to me like I'm 5. And now I have a fairly good understanding of EPM. And like I think that in the world of AI, if you want to understand how to contextualize something, and there is a glossary or in a description, just let AI do it for you. It's literally 4 clicks in a sentence. Explain this to me like I'm 5, and it will. And sometimes you might feel a bit dumb for having to do that, but smart people ask dumb questions to learn more. Dumb people don't ask questions and stay dumb. So just run with that. Sorry, Billy, you can carry on now. And I'm
Yeah,
not calling anybody dumb because I'm probably the dumb one, but I'm just saying.
no, and this is probably my dumb question, so this is perfect right after it. This is something that bothers me. It seems like, correct me if I'm wrong, that like most of these modern stats, the advanced ones at least, favor bigs, and obviously PER is the biggest one that they're still using a lot in MVP voting. A lot of the media likes to use PER, and it just completely dogs a player like Tatum, who's more about volume than efficiency. But obviously, Tatum's still impacting winning at the highest level. So, what would it be? Is it fair? Is it unfair? Is it a good stat? Is it a bad stat? It volume versus efficiency?
Yeah, let me answer this question. First of all, PR is outdated. Like, there have been better stats for 15 years. No one should look at it anymore. If you want a direct one-to-one replacement, use BPM. Like, BPM is also outdated, but it's much better than PR. BPM is by Basketball Reference. It's a much better replacement to PER. And also, like most advanced stats, I don't think they favor bigs a lot. I've checked with the creator of LeBron. He says only like among the main 3 impact metrics, EPM, LeBron, and Darko, only LeBron like favors a little bit more bigs because of the way the box score is handled. But if you look at these stats, Tatum is still high, like top 5 in most of these all-in-one impact metrics. The reason why I think he's so high is because he does several things which doesn't show up on the box scores, but they show up in this impact metrics indirectly through plus minus components. Like Tatum is 7th in multi-year EPM. This is a new stat which on dunksandthrees.com, which tries to project a player's impact into the future. And he's 3rd in Darko DPM and 3rd in LeBron. That's even if you see the 3 stats, he's top 5 or top 10 in all of these. So his impact is being captured, but he's basically not number 1, which is like Jokic, because of his like extreme high like offensive impact. I don't think like anyone has matched in like past 20 years. So that's why like, Jokic and like Giannis are higher in these metrics, but I don't think it's because of these metrics. It's because their impact is so important to their teams. So they do a lot of things on offense, like a lot of heavy carrying on offense. Without them, the teams don't function. And Tatum to an extent is there, but not at those levels.
You hear that, John Hollander? Your stat is trash. So, shots fired.
Wow. That was harsh, man. John Hollinger catching strays for no reason.
And it's so mean because he's so nice. Like, I always bug him at Summer League, and he's always so nice to answer just stupid questions. But yeah, sorry about that. I just hate PER.
No, I think even he admits PER is outdated. It was made like 20 or even more years ago. There are like a lot of more advances in metrics in the recent, I think 5 years or 10 years.
So I'm just going to lighten it now, talking about 20 years ago. The other day, I went and bought myself a collector's edition of the original Space Jam, and I am absolutely stoked with it. I just wanted to lighten the mood because apparently we're taking shots at people now. I'm only playing. I'm just playing, man. Yeah, so the Celtics remaining schedule, you've got them ranked on your own calculations, which will be up on the screen
Mhm.
once again. They've got the third easiest remaining strength for schedule. So the Washington Wizards are second, Toronto Raptors are first in terms of strength of schedule. Now, the most
Mhm.
important one for Celtics fans will be the Cleveland Cavaliers that are around like, what's that, 13, 12, 13 range.
Yeah.
So the Celtics having, first of all, obviously just break down what goes into a calculation of strengths of schedule. Hopefully it's quite straightforward. And then how do you feel like the Celtics' chances are of they're 5.5 games behind Cleveland for that first seed right now? New York are in third, are one, like towards the latter end of strength of schedule. They've got quite a difficult schedule coming up. What's Boston's chances of closing that down and finishing as the first seed again? Maybe even the overall number one in the NBA once again, where OKC.
OKC, I think, are close to
Yeah, fuck
Cleveland.
OKC. What's the Celtics' chances of getting to number one in the East, man?
Yeah, let me explain the metric first. So I have something called adjusted net rating, which adjusts the net rating for strength of schedule. So I use those net ratings as of like, let's say yesterday, and simulate the season forward just to look at what the remaining opponents are and average their net rating. So it's adjusted for strength of schedule before, and then I'm projecting the strength of schedule forward. So if you look at the graph, you can see the Raptors are -5. That's ridiculous. So it's a cakewalk for them rest of the way. So which is harder for the tanking hopes. Generally, the teams which are higher in the remaining strength of schedule are teams which are usually good because they don't play themselves. But Celtics, Raptors and Wizards are exception here. But the third team here is the Boston Celtics. And compared to the opponents, as Adam said, like Cavs are like around neutral. So they have like a neutral center schedule. And Knicks have a more difficult center schedule. They're on 10th. But because the Celtics are 5.5 games back, if I'm correct, that's a lot of ground to cover up, even with a little, somewhat harder center schedule of the Cavs. Because we're very hard to beat that, even if they're tougher center schedule.
But it won't be hard to beat them in a 7-game series.
That's the truth.
I was hoping
What?
someone would agree with me. I was just putting out an outlandish take and hoping someone would back me up. Okay, just leave me on an island.
No, I think we
I'll stay on
generally
that
agree.
island.
The matchup is good for us. What I wanted to ask about the strength of schedule. Basically at the beginning of the season, the betting odds kind of predicted us about 58 wins. Our pace is at 58 wins right now, but with this easier strength of schedule down the stretch, do you think it would be realistic that they hit the 60 mark? Obviously, the one
Yep.
seed might be out, but I'd rather hit the
Mhm.
60 mark. So yeah, you think that would be in our favor?
Yes,
Very
absolutely.
I'd rather win first seed than hit 60. I'm just one of these like Ricky Bobby in it. You know what I mean? If you're not first, you're last. So we've talked about the final seed. Playoff progress seems to be the last thing we need to talk about. So let's just do a round robin here. I'll start with, will the Celtics make the NBA Finals? Yes. Will the Celtics win a championship?
Yes.
Yes, they will. And I will say this, I think that Cleveland match up better with Boston than New York do right now, but I think New York match up really well with Cleveland, especially if Mitchell Robinson's back and he's playing in a double big with Towns, which looks like that's going to be what happens. I think that series would be really difficult, and you're just playing for a chance to lose anyway, so it's fine. Shravan, will the Celtics make the NBA Finals?
Yes, I think the Celtics match up really good against the Cavs because of their length on defense and defensive versatility. Cavs usually uh like start like two shorter guards, and then what if Ca- Celtics have enough bodies to put on them to tire them out in a longer series. And then with respect to winning championship, like Thunder have like they're like the best team of all time right now, according to their like strength adjusted rating or SRS or even the net rating. It's like it's even better than Celtics last year. But like I was a little bit disappointed they didn't make to get one more role player to shoot up their offense, Because right now, I don't have the stats to show you, but it's like Shea is doing like a carry job on that offense. The offense without Shea looks extremely mediocre. Like it's, or even bad. Like this Shea, that's why Shea for me right now is the MVP favorite because of the extreme impact he has on his team offense. And if that's off even a little bit, I don't trust this uh, Thunder to generate enough good offense, especially against elite defenses. Like against normal teams is okay, but against elite defenses, it might be a little bit difficult if the Celtics, let's say, manage to slow down Shea. Where else are they getting the offense from?
Yeah.
But still, the Thunder have historically the best defense of all time. They might make the games competitive, but again, I think the Celtics can slow the Thunder down in a 7-game series.
I will
Do you
say
think-
this. I think, sorry, Billy, I just want to put this out there. I think that the Thunder were probably apprehensive to make another edition this summer because of how things went when they added Gordon Hayward last year. So they were probably, they might have been like, do you know what? Fuck that. We're not doing that again. We're going to wait until the summer. Who knows?
I get that.
Sorry, Billy, the Gordon Hayward effect.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask in general, do they shoot enough threes to play the math game against us? Because it doesn't seem like that's their their MO.
It doesn't matter. Shea gets whatever shots he wants, makes whatever shots he wants, gets the free throw line whenever he wants. Like all the math doesn't matter. When you have a guy who can make any shot at any level, get to the free throw line whenever he wants, and like he's like a mid-range guard and a 3-point guard and a rim guard, like you can't stop him. Like he's the most unstoppable player in the NBA right now.
Do you
Billy.
think it's weird that they don't double him? Like, what is the threat of doubling Shea like they would Tatum? Like, I don't think his supporting cast is stronger than Tatum's yet. Tatum gets the double every game, and Shea, it's very rare.
I think he's getting doubled. I'm not sure about the stats after diving deeper, but it's like they managed to get good shots whenever he's doubled. So they, even though their supporting cast is not as good offensively compared to the defense, they still manage to generate good shots when Shea's on the court. And he's generating these advantages. Like if he's generating the advantages, finding the open guys, maybe swing. But when he's on the court, whatever happens, they're generating extremely good offense. It doesn't matter, double, triple, it's one-on-one. Like Shea is that good offensively. He's in a different zone this year.
Billy, are you taking the Celtics to make the NBA Finals?
Yeah, I just trust the math. Threes are more than two. SGA could have the MVP though. That'll be a consolation prize. My only thing is they've never been out of the second round. I think you do need that experience to be deeper in the playoffs. Regular season's the regular season. I'm not going to insult the Thunder and say they're like, that Hawks team that won 60 something games, but I do think they're not there yet.
Yeah, I think, the Celtics needed to lose in the finals to be able to win in the finals. And I think that's kind of a tried and tested narrative to a level where it's just like, yo, if you're coming up against a team that's comparatively as talented as you across the board, through 1 through 8, 1 through 10, whatever it may be, and you've both got a top 5, top 7 guy, then experience starts to play a role there. And I just think the Celtics are so much more battle tested on deep playoff runs, multiple conference finals runs. This would be the third time to make the NBA Finals as a unit if they make it. So that experience to me, coupled with the fact that there's a comparative talent level on both ends of the floor. I know the Thunder are playing at a way higher level defensively, but it's a comparative talent level. I do think that the Celtics win that, but I think it goes 6-7 games quite easily.
Yeah, I think it will be a really close series. There's no Thunder at the historic level. It's never an easy series.
No, it's not a cakewalk at all. Shravan, we've wrapped up. We've spoke a lot of numbers. We spoke a lot of algorithms. I've sworn more than I usually do. Shows you I feel comfortable. I just want to say thank you for jumping on, man. I want everyone to show you some love. So where can they find you? How can they interact with you? How can they show support, love, whatever they need to do?
Yeah, thanks for inviting me, Adam. Like you can find me at SRAVAN NBA on Twitter or SRADJOKER.cc on Blue Sky. And if you want to read some of the stats and the methodology, you can look up my blog, which is blog.sradjoker.cc. And yeah, if you have a question, just shoot me a mention on Twitter.
Awesome. Make sure you're showing some love to me and Billy. Hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, subscribe to the Celtics Chronicle newsletter. I want 3,000 subs by December 31st. Means I got to double the amount I got right now. So get clicking, everybody. Billy, we doing letterbox again?
Yeah, Oscar season. Let's go CBO 041. We're already at over 30 movies reviewed for this year as well. So if you're not into the movies from last year, check out some of the stuff I saw this year.
Everybody, make sure to show love, hit that subscribe button. We'll catch you again soon. If you're listening on the audio feed, we love you too. Peace.